Good morning, everybody. Good morning, colleagues. You're very welcome to this session this morning on Canvas for new staff. So if you're new staff, you're very welcome to MTU, and I hope you're having a good start this week. Um, this is a sort of an induction session on Canvas and related integrations to give you a sense of how to use Canvas for your daily teaching and your students' learning. But there will be a lot more training over the next 2 weeks on specifics, such as the integrations with Zoom and other bits and pieces. So don't be worried if you don't get everything through this particular session. There's going to be more, and I'll point you to a lot of other resources along the way as well. My name is Shane Cronin, and I'm from the Department of Technology Enhanced Learning here in MTU Cork campus. Um, and I guess in terms of just the protocol, or just in terms of how you can interact through this session, this is a webinar session as opposed to maybe a standard meeting in Zoom. So the Q&A feature at the very bottom of your screen is a good place to ask any questions. This is also being broadcasted out live to YouTube so that you can view it later on. And we post those recordings up to our site. So if you have any questions, feel free to use that Q&A feature, and I'll keep an eye on that through the session. So I'm just going to share my screen right now, and we'll get started. Canvas for new staff, I've done the welcome. This is what we're going to cover in our session today. So the MTU Cork TEL ecosystem, so just looking at the various applications of Canvas and things that integrate with Canvas, logging in and accessing your modules, and a few maybe quick tips on that as well. First steps for using Canvas and setting up your module. The Canvas interface. So the Canvas interface and just getting familiar with that. Setting up your module. And then also just simple things like adding files and adding links into your module, and a look at assignments in Canvas. And we'll probably come across a few more feature sets as we go along there. And as I say, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. So Canvas is our virtual learning environment, or otherwise known as a learning management system. I prefer to call it a learning management system myself. I think it's a better term, but it's basically used by all staff and students here. And you as a lecturer will be enrolled on the relevant modules, as will your students. Now, there's probably a bit of a state of flux at this point in time in the semester where you may not have all of your modules accessible for various reasons. You might be added as an instructor later to the module, and if you have any issues, I'll tell you about an email address to get onto if you're not seeing those modules. But hopefully you should see those modules, and your students will be coming on board over the next week, or next week for first years, and we'll get started then. So Canvas is used, as you may know if you have used an LMS before, for sharing resources, for sharing and receiving assessment files, and for communicating with students. Now that's a simple way of explaining what Canvas does, but it does a lot more, obviously. But from a day-to-day perspective, you'll use it to support your digital teaching and learning offerings for your students at MTU. Some of the benefits of Canvas. So we're using Canvas here in MTU quite a while. It's ease of use. So Canvas was adopted a good few years ago here, and I guess we looked at a lot of products at the time. This has come out on top really in terms of ease of use, mobility. So I'll talk about the mobile applications in a minute. Learning analytics. So they're useful just to keep to have a sense of how students are engaging with your module and to get some meaningful insights there. Integrated media, so you can record audio and video into various parts of Canvas. So if, for example, you want to record audio or video messages, or um, if you want to record feedback for assessments, which is quite a nice feature. I use that quite a bit where, if you're doing some written feedback for an assessment, you might want to do some sort of a summary. You could do that as an audio or a video recording into the speed grader in Canvas, which is a nice feature. The speed grader is where you'll do all of your grading and your feedback, and it's where you'll see all the assessments come in. Uh, and where you'll release marks and feedback at a particular point in the semester. And then in terms of support, apart from the support that we give you as a technology enhanced learning team, you do have that 24/7, 365 or 365 days a year support by the Canvas team. So that's called Tier 1 support. And basically in Canvas, and I'll show you in a minute, in a demonstration, you can go through the help menu and you can access in various ways the support with Canvas, either by web chat, which is a good option, I think, to start with, because you generally get someone on straight away. You also have email, so if you're not in a big rush for a response and you just want to log something, you can email them, or you can actually phone them as well if you want to. Um, just going to quit my email so it's not pinging in the background. Okay, so just in terms of additional features, so the Department of Technology Enhanced Learning here has integrated rather a lot of other tools into Canvas. So depending on how you're delivering your lectures, whether it's fully online or whether it's face to face, there are certain applications here that you may or may not use. So Zoom is our live online lecturing platform. So in MTU, we have two live platforms, I suppose, if you're getting familiar with things. So Microsoft Teams would be typically used for what I would say almost like the business communication side of MTU. So that's where we have staff communicating with staff, and there's various things that happen there on a daily basis, and you'll be interacting with PMSS staff and so on through that platform and through email. Whereas Zoom is our live lecturing solution, and that's integrated with Canvas. So if you do want to run any live sessions with students on your modules, you can do so either in a traditional face-to-face program, or you might want to deliver some support for your students at particular points in the semester, or even to record content that you might be giving them as extra material. Or if you're to think of almost like different pedagogical approaches, like the flipped classroom, where you might be recording some practical work that the students take before they come into a lecture, and use the lecture time as a more collaborative, discursive environment. So Zoom is integrated with Canvas, and my colleague Sarah will be delivering a session on that later on today, and those sessions will be repeated, and they're obviously recorded. So don't worry if you don't get to the live sessions, they're all recorded as well. Plagiarism detection, so Turnitin is our plagiarism detection platform. This is only a very recent thing, actually. So as of this week, in fact, Turnitin has been rolled out on our production instance of Canvas, and there's training to come up and communications around that platform and how it works with Canvas. So we've moved from a previous one to Turnitin. There's a whole procurement process that happened there, and as I say, there'll be training around that platform in the coming weeks, starting from next week. We also have an e-learning authoring tool that's integrated with Canvas. So that is through what we call the rich content editor in Canvas. So beyond sharing pages and text and images and files in a kind of a traditional way that you would do in your modules, you also have the ability to add rich interactions into your modules, inline in your modules. So imagine you have various pages that cover course materials and you want to add, for example, knowledge checks or different types of interactions that help to reinforce the learning on your topic of the day or your course material on that particular week. You can add rich e-learning interactions into your module using that H5P, which is HTML5 interactions. Um, and there will be training coming up also in that this week and next. Automated assessments cover things, other integrations that are specific to other disciplines, I guess. So you have Labster and Numbus are two there that have been used. Learning analytics is another feature of Canvas. So that's actually an integral part of Canvas, but it allows you, in particular, for example, in the middle of your semester. So if you're coming on to week 5 or 6, typically, it's a good time to check in with your students. We deliver a session or a training session in and around that time as well, just to help people to interpret the results that you'll see in the analytics section of your module. So it's just useful, I think, to look at the type of engagement that you're getting on particular aspects of your module, and just helps you to check in with your students, basically. Digital attendance. So this is used quite a lot in face-to-face. So the digital attendance tool is called Quickly, and that allows you to run attendance on your modules, and your students can easily check in on that. And then accessibility is another feature, and this is another training session that's delivered as You Do It. So You Do It allows you to do an accessibility check on your module to make sure that your module is accessible to people with various accessibility issues. For example, maybe visual impairments, or to be able to use things like screen readers and so on, and that they'll be able to use your module and read it and hear it and so on, as everybody else will be able to. Also, there are 2 mobile apps. I'll talk about those in a second. But just to talk about the various um, kind of features that you'll see within the digital learning infrastructure of MTU. So Canvas is at the center of it all really here. So the Canvas LMS will be your first point of entry. And then all of the other integrations and features within Canvas you will be using as you need to, as you see fit. So in the various quadrants here, we have things like asynchronous communication and collaboration. So using, the inbox feature in Canvas, for example, collaborations, video recordings within Canvas. Closer in here in towards Canvas are the integrated features, and these are other maybe periphery things that you'd be using outside of Canvas. So on the inbox is a really integral tool in terms of communicating with students. So within your modules, all of your students are enrolled in a particular module via MyBan, which is the student information system, and enrollments come over from that a couple of times a day. So if there is any delay, just note that there are 2 times in the day, morning and evening, that enrollment records are updated. So don't worry if you don't see them straight away. There's a script that runs and automates the process. But when you're communicating with your students, it's quite a useful feature where in the inbox you can compose a message to students on a particular module, and it's also useful for communicating on things like assessments and other things that you'll be doing in your weekly teaching. Your announcements feature, and I'll show you where that is in a minute, is a way of sending almost like a bulletin out to your students. And that's where the app and email come into play as well. So if for example, say for a face-to-face lecture, you were running late, or there was some change in schedule to a lecture, for example, and similarly for fully online, you can send an announcement, which is just a global, a kind of a bulletin message to go out to all of your students. It goes out straight away, or you can schedule it as well, and your students will be able to pick that up on either the student app, which I'll talk to you about in a second, or by email, or when they log into their dashboard in Canvas. The discussions feature is really useful for creating threaded discussions. And then within the assessment quadrant, you have quizzes, assignments, and rubrics. And we'll be talking a bit more about that when we get into assignments and assignment and uh, feedback and grading season, I suppose. But I'll talk to you about some of the basics today in a bit. Original has changed, so sorry, that should be updated to turn it in. Portfolium is another tool. It's an e-portfolio tool that we have at MTU. And then within the classroom management and engagement and tracking side of things, you have your scheduler. So a scheduler within Canvas allows you to kind of create almost like doodle polls where you can set up presentation slots and so on within Canvas. You have analytics, which I talked about already. Canvas catalog, which is a new enough feature, is a way to present modules out to groups of students, and we'll be talking to you a bit more about that at a later time. Down here on the content on demand, you have Pages, Units, and Canvas Commons. Canvas Commons is an area where you can release Creative Commons licensed content out to either people within MTU or out to other Canvas users within the community. H5P, I mentioned already, is an authoring tool, allows you to create rich interactions. And then on the other side here, in terms of live classes and communication, I've mentioned that we have Zoom. There's also a chat feature within Canvas that allows you to do live chat. And then Zoom features include breakout rooms, applications, and whiteboards, and so on. So other types of things that are in this quadrant here then are all the peripherals you might use on a daily basis to either create digital learning content or to be able to deliver live content. So things like webcams, headsets, graphics tablets, document cameras, and so on. So if you're interested in any of these things or just even want to try them out, you can always visit us in the department. Document cameras, for example, are a great tool to use for live demonstration. I've seen them in the new building on campus, which has the new lecture theatres, for example. They're quite an effective way of delivering live content and recording content and so on. So going through the list here, then we also have the Canvas Teacher app. So that application is available for the Google Play Store and also on the App Store. So you can basically download that. This is I think if you were to just use it for one thing, even to send out announcements to your students on the go, it's a really useful tool that way. And then just in general, if you get messages in from students, you can keep an eye on them on your smartphone. I mentioned this already, but MyBan is the student information system and where all the module enrollments come from, and that refresh happens twice a day. But if you do have any queries, for example, if you're not seeing a module on your dashboard, use that email address, and I'll post it in to the chat here as well, just so you have it. That's Web for Faculty, cork@mtu.ie. So if you don't see a module or if you're not enrolled on a module that you should be, that's the email address to get onto because say, for example, if we manually enrolled you, as we have done for some staff who are, in a bind and need to get on a module really quickly, that doesn't hold your record into, for example, when you're logging grades in Web for Faculty later on in the semester. So it's important to get enrolled formally through Web for Faculty. I'm not sure if anyone has or if you've had a chance to log into Canvas yet, but if you haven't, there are a few just simple steps. So you use your MS number. So you go MS00. So that's the sort of the common bit, and then your ID. So this is basically your staff ID at mtu.ie. And You should have that in Core and on your email and so on. You will have to verify your identity using multi-factor authentication, whatever way you have that set up. If you have any issues with that, I would suggest contacting our IT services team. So multi-factor authentication is a really important thing to have operational for you, not only for accessing Canvas, but also Zoom and also email and other applications. So that's just it's an added security measure. Once you do verify your identity, you get into the Canvas system. So just before I get into talking about and doing a live demo of some of the features in Canvas, I'd just like to talk to you about some of the supports. So web for faculty, I mentioned in terms of Canvas support, you have web chat. That's the first protocol, I think. So within Canvas, you have the web chat feature, and I can show you in here. So if you go to help, um, there's a lot of features in here, and you will have web chat for faculty. So you'll see the faculty version here. I'm seeing faculty and students. As an administrator, sorry. There's web chat for Canvas support for students as well. And remember, all of that is 24/7 support as well. You have submitting a ticket to Canvas, so you can submit that via the help menu as well. And then you also have the telephone support, so that's useful if you want to talk to someone live on the phone. The other things you can do in terms of support, so if these haven't worked for you, you can submit a ticket to ourselves, so edtech@mtu.ie. I'm going to paste that also into the chat. So that's useful for all other queries. We also have the Canvas Learn course. So I'll show you what that looks like there as well. And I'll paste it into the chat. And I'll also do a follow-up message after the session, by the way. So it'll be kind of a summary of all of this stuff. But the Canvas Learn course is a really useful place to go that walks you through the various parts of Canvas. So I won't be able to cover everything in this session today, for example, but I think it's a really good place to get started if you have a query on any aspect of Canvas. So that walks you through in a nice self-paced course of the various parts of the Canvas system. The TEL website is another place to go. So we have a lot of support and resources, and the upcoming training, not only having sent it on email, is also available there if you want to register for any of that. There's staff support guides. So we have this kind of knowledge base of articles that we update almost daily at this stage with various supports for staff. So if you want to drill down into any specific features of our various digital learning applications, do check in on that URL. And then we also finally have our YouTube channel, which we're broadcasting out to live right now. And if you want to tune into that, there's a lot of recordings. Not only today's recording will be there, but also previous recordings of sessions that we've done over time. So do check in on that as well. And as I said, you don't have to be attending all of the live sessions. It's a handy way of catching up on that content. So I've covered the Canvas Learn for Staff module that you can take in your own time and pace. Now let's have a look at Canvas and just and get to just familiar with that. What I might start with is I'm just going to show you a module that I've delivered on with a colleague of mine in MTU previously, just to see what a module might look like. Now, there's no hard and fast rule in terms of how you structure your module, but typically what a lot of staff will do here in MTU is they will structure their content by either week or by topic. In Canvas, we have a few ways of kind of managing and organizing our content. So at the topmost, I suppose, level this is a module. So you have your global navigation here on the left. Don't worry if you see extra options here is just because I'm an administrator, TEL administrator, but you'll see something very similar. On the second list here is your module level navigation, and then in the middle is what you could call it your staging area almost. This is where you put your content. This is where you're delivering your content to your students. So in the middle section here, we have recent announcements. So if you have sent out an announcement, students will see those announcements in here. You also have units. So units, you could think them as akin to folders as such. So they're just a way of organizing your content together. So in here, in this particular module, myself and my colleague have organize our content by week. So week 1 right up to week 13. And in each of those, because this is a sort of a live, an online program, I suppose we do have links to recordings and stuff, but it wouldn't be much different to what a face-to-face module would look like either. So we post our slides into each of the weeks and any supplementary materials. So in the units, and I'll show you how to create them in a second, you can also indent content. So we have links and we have files, and you can also indent your content so that it just is organized under a particular heading. So for example, under week 2 here, I have other supplementary links that I've added to in there. And so on and so on. So you see the difference between a file and a link as well. So a file appears like this with your attachment icon, and a link has this chain link symbol here as well. Within each of your weeks as well, you can create what are called sections. So it's just another way of visually indenting or organizing your content. So I've done it here in week 4 where I have a section heading, and I have a short lesson here, an assignment, and I have a link as well, and so on and so on. So you can see all of that here. As you're probably seeing as well here, you have the notion of publishing. So on the right-hand side, I have this tick icon, this green tick. So this is a very important aspect of Canvas to get to grips with, I suppose, initially, is you have the notion of publishing. So if you haven't published content, basically it won't be visible to your students. So a very easy way of checking, for example, is if I went in here and I go to unpublish this particular unit, and I go into what's called the student view. So I'm going to go into view as student on the top right-hand corner. I can see that that unit has completely disappeared. Now I've tested something, by the way, there called the student view. So the student view allows you to basically preview what your module will look like as a student. So if you're ever in doubt, really, along the way, you can go into this view to preview what it will look like a student. So if I click on this link at any stage, I can see that the global navigation has changed. So this reflects what students can see. The module level navigation has changed based on what I've made available to students in the navigation. And then as I say, your main kind of content area has changed, and it's changed as well to reflect that I've unpublished the week 1 content there. So the other things to note, I suppose, on the right-hand side are just other tools, including the analytics tool, the ability to have just kind of quick links as well to creating announcements. There's a module setup checklist that it guides you through how you set up your module, and you can have a look at that in your own time. And there's other options in terms of importing and exporting content, which you probably don't need to worry about at this point in the semester. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to stop sharing a second. I'm going to ask if anyone has any questions, and I'm going to hop over. So it'll use the Q&A feature if you have any questions, by the way. And I'm going to hop over to a kind of a blank module that we can use within Canvas. And we're just going to start getting familiar in how we kind of structure our module quickly there. Okay, so I don't see anything coming in, but please feel free to add any questions in there. Okay, Aoife, thanks very much for that. Right, so no questions so far. Let's get into what a module looks like. So each module in Canvas has a specific set of settings applied across MTU, so all modules should look the same from the get-go. We use what's called a blueprint to push out settings, including what the navigation looks like, what integrations are available in Canvas, and also uh, things like the grade posting policy, which you don't have to worry about right now, but I suppose when it comes to grading, that that the grades aren't posted out right away, which is an important feature when you're grading on the go. But let's start actually just looking at the anatomy of a module. So the first thing I would say is there's three levels of publishing. So your module status up here says unpublished on the right-hand side here. So the first thing I would do is I'd publish the module. If the module isn't published, it won't be available to students, so students won't see it on their dashboard. So that's an important first step. Um, what it'll ask you is where to choose the module homepage. And because we don't have any units set up, I'm just going to set the module activity stream, which is almost like just a view of activity on the module so far, but we can change that at any stage as well. So the first place then to kind of look at is our units area. So if I go into units, you'll have the option to create a new unit. And I showed you that example of a previous or a module that myself and a colleague had used last year. So if you go in to create a unit, you can go in and you can name it by week or by topic. I typically go by week, and you can add that unit. So the next level of publishing, so we have the module level, which is making the module available to your students so they can access it. And the next level of publishing then is actually on a unit level. So we can choose to publish the unit only or the unit and all sub items. So I'm gonna just go at the top one here, unit and all items. So as I add my items, they'll be available to my students. Now, within a unit, you can add content. So we can add items. So items can constitute things like assignments, quizzes, files. So a file would be, for example, if you're dealing with PowerPoint files, you could share a PowerPoint file or PDF file or whatever type of file into your unit. Pages. So pages allow you to compose pages with content. So, for example, if you wanted to just provide a bit of scaffolding on a particular topic and you didn't want it to be a file, you could actually compose it within a page in Canvas. And you can also add useful things within a page like images. You can add recordings. You can add H5P interactions, which, as I say, will be covered in another session, but they allowed you to create inline knowledge checks for your students. Discussions, so basically to be able to create discussion threads. So that's quite a useful feature if you want discussions to happen around a particular topic. And you also have the notion of graded discussions, by the way. You have a text header. For example, I mentioned that in terms of the sectioning off of content. So it's just a way of having different sections within your content. External URL is simply a link. So if you want to add a link to something that's online, you can do that there. So, and the other thing is external tool. An external tool is where you access other integrated tools within Canvas. But for now, I think just focus on the fundamentals. So the most common things you'll be starting off with here are files, assignments, and I would say external URL. Lauren, can we have text on top above the units introducing yourself, etc.? Well, what I would do there, Lauren, is I would have a unit which is almost like an introduction section, and you could add your introduction, your profile, maybe things like office hours, useful tips and tricks in there. So I can do that there if you like. Just, I mean, just by way of explaining. So intro to this module, for example, or it could be an introduction from your lecture. You can drag any of these modules up as well. So on this side here, you can move the unit. So you can move the unit to the top, or you can move it somewhere else. Remember as well, publishing. So if you see this kind of symbol here, the content isn't published basically, so you need to be able to publish it. And then typically there, Lauren and everybody else, what I would do is I would create a page, which would be sorry, I'm doing shorthand here, obviously, but you could write it in a more articulate way. Intro from your lecture. Um, and in that page, if you click into the page itself, this is an example of a page. The format here is very similar, so don't worry about once you get into adding content and editing it, it becomes very repetitive and similar. So if you go to edit here, you're into what's called the rich content editor. So you see an editor like this in word processors and all other types of online platforms, which gives you a WYSIWYG editor. What you see is what you get editor, and you have control over your typography, bold, italics, underline, all of that stuff, adding links, adding images, adding media. So you can upload or record media into the content editor, and so on and so on. So what you could do here is you could write your intro from Shane. You could have a bio pic or thumbnail. So you could have a profile pic of yourself in there, for example. You could have office hours, you could have links and so on. And that's where you would add something like that. So so you can you can not only think of units as just the way of organizing content per week, but also having other maybe supplementary materials such as that intro to the module, for example. Now, one thing that we might want to do, so at the very start, what I did is I set the activity stream as the landing page for the module, but now that we have a few units, we might want to change that. So instead, I can go up to this section. So when we go to home, that'll be the home for students where they'll land. And this probably isn't the best place for them to land. We want them to land in the units page because that's where the content will be visible to them. We can choose home page in here, and we can go module units, save that. And basically then from now on, if we go to home, that'll bring them to the units area. And quite useful is recent announcements as well. Other things you can add obviously are files. So if I go in and go file, I can either add previously uploaded files, which I might do in this case because I don't have anything relevant on my desktop, and I'm just going to add a PDF. So I might add that into my tips. And remember again, make sure you have that green tick for anything you want to be published. It's useful. It's something to get used to, but for example, if you don't want content to be available and you're just staging it for your students, you would have it unpublished. Other things you can add, for example, are links, so a URL. So you could type in a URL, for example, I'll just copy one here. And you give that URL a name. So this is assign to guide. And remember in the module that I showed you in terms of indentation and organization, you can choose to indent content under specific headings. I'm not going to do it here because it doesn't make sense, but you can also choose for the content to open up in a new tab. So if you don't want the URL that you're presenting to override all the content in Canvas and move them away from Canvas, you can open it up in a new tab. We can again publish that, and if you want to test it out, we can click on that, and that opens up a new tab and shows us that guide. Okay, the next thing I'm going to show you, so we've learned about adding, publishing content and adding files, URLs, and so on. you'll get very used to that quite quickly, I think. And if you have any queries, do touch base with ourselves. Or there's a really useful search, the Canvas guides as well in Canvas. I'll open it up in a new tab there, but accessible from the help menu. If you go into the Canvas guides and the Canvas LMS, you can search down into all sorts of features within Canvas. So if you wanted to learn about um, for example, what we were just in, which was uh, the modules or the area or units area, you could learn how to do so in there. Navigation, announcements, all of that stuff. So there's drill down guides into all of that stuff. So another thing you might want to do, so at the very beginning of your module, say you've created some content, you've put in your introduction to yourself, maybe some of the supplementary materials or presentation for today's content. You can go in to the announcements section. So in the home section here, we have an area for recent announcements. So this posts up the most recent, I think, 2 announcements on the module. If you go into your announcements area, click on plus announcement. This allows you to create a kind of almost like a bulletin message to your students. So welcome to this module. Class starts at 11 a.m. this morning. We'll cover X. You might want to give them some sort of supplementary material. The other thing you could do, and it's a nice feature within Canvas, is you can record media directly into Canvas. So this will present, it'll just ask you to use your camera and your microphone. I'm going to allow this time. And what you can do is you can, within Canvas, you can record a message directly into the Canvas rich content editor. So you can record that message, and once recorded, it could be available. So I can go in, I can get a countdown in here, and I can say, thanks very much, everybody, for your participation in this module. We'll kick off at 11 o'clock this morning, and I'm looking forward to meeting you all. So here we go, save that media, and into content editor goes. And once that's after loading, that'll be available in there. And then within the announcement, you can publish it. I'm not going to publish it actually because this is a module that is about to take place. I don't want to confuse people, but once you've published that, this will become an announcement. Students will see it on their student app. They'll get an email, and they'll also see it in the module in Canvas. Now, if you like as well, it's quite a nice feature. You can schedule announcements. So if you want to schedule specific types of announcements that'll happen over the course of the 13 weeks of the module, you can schedule them to happen from particular dates and to end on particular dates. And that's a way just of scheduling your messages to go out. But think of announcements as a bulletin to go out to all your students. Now, the inbox feature is, I'm not going to click on it now because I have messages from students and staff in there. But if you go in there, what you can do is you can compose messages to your students or to fellow lecturers on a particular module. So that basically for all the world is almost like a webmail for your module, and you can use that to communicate with specific people or groups depending on what way you have them set up in your module. Now, one last thing before we'll wrap up, and don't worry, we're not wrapping up completely. You're going to get more training on specific aspects of Canvas, but this is just by way of a kind of an introduction to Canvas for new staff. The Zoom feature obviously is where you can record or deliver live content into Zoom. So that'll allow you to use the rich the integration and schedule a meeting and or a class and to record a class. You can do that directly within Canvas. Usually that loads within that link there. I think it's just because I'm doing the training and sharing it in a particular type of window. But that's where you'll find the Zoom integration. And as I said, Sarah will be showing you a bit more about that in a small bit, I think 2 o'clock today. The other thing to look at, obviously, is you'll be creating assignments at some point. So assignments are under the assignments section. If you click on the plus assignment, you can create your assignment. So your assignment title, and it's good to have some sort of a summary or overview of your assignment in here. Now, I think in most cases, staff, when they're sharing an assignment brief will actually be an attachment to the particular assignment. So you could attach that within the rich content editor. So you could go in here, you could add either a link to something that exists already or upload media, and you could do that and make it a link within the rich content editor. But I would usually encourage people to have some sort of a summary or overview of the assignment as well in here. So that's usually the protocol, or where what I see most with staff is you have your assignment title, some sort of a brief summary of it in here, and then also a link to a PDF or a Word doc of the brief for the actual assignment. Points value. So this usually I would say is between 0 and 100, and depends on the weighting of your assignment. So most people will have a number of assignments in a particular semester. So what I would do is I would use the points value as a way of indicating the weighting of your assignment. So usually I just keep this at 100 basically, and we can use the group weighting outside of this then to be able to say this is 80% of the module, or this is 20%. So let's leave it there. We'll say display grade is percentage is a bit of a standard as well. So leave points at 100 for now. Assignments group speaks to, if you have different groups of assignments with different weightings, you can kind of do that and change that at assignment level. You have submission type. So usually a submission type is online, as file, or as something that your students are submitting. So it could be text entry, where they submit into the rich content editor, which would be sort of unusual. I think in most cases, what you're going to have is you're going to have a URL. You're going to have maybe possibly a media recording, where they can record like I did into the rich content editor in their assignment. You could have an annotation of a particular type of file, and you could have a file upload as well. File uploads can be restricted to particular file types if you like, but I usually kind of keep this open. So, I mean, you'll have students submitting written work, for example, as PDF or doc, a Word doc or something, unless you specify otherwise. In terms of submission attempts, allowed attempts. So if you leave this as unlimited, it'll allow them to submit unlimited attempts, but it'll timestamp each of those. So unless you want to really kind of lock it down, I would leave it to unlimited, because if it's too limited, it'll just allow a number of attempts. So you could say 1 or 2 attempts, for example. Plagiarism review. So this is currently we actually have 2 concurrent platforms, Original and Turnitin, but Turnitin is the predominant ones. It's the one that's going to be is basically our new plagiarism detection tool. This is where you would choose to use Turnitin. So if you choose to have a submission, a written submission as a Turnitin assignment, this is where you'll do so. And there's various tick boxes here in terms of how Turnitin should see that assignment and analyze it. I'm not going to speak specifically to Turnitin today, but we are, as I say, having a number of weeks of training on that particular tool that will be coming up starting next week. So look out for that. Show report students, that's all part of the plagiarism review. You could have things like group assignments. So this is where you have a number of groups, and groups can be set up in the people area of Canvas. You can find out more about that specifically in our help guides if you're interested in it, but we're just talking about individual assignments for now. You can assign access to particular assignments based on your enrollment within a module. So a lot of cross-listing requests are coming in, for example, to our help desk at the moment, where you're combining different cohorts into one master module. So if you're delivering the same module content across different groups, that's called cross-listing, where you merge those groups. Those groups will be made into what are called sections of a module. And if you wanted to assign access to specific sections, you could do so within the assignment feature here. Don't worry about it for now. If you have any specific questions, do get on to us though on anything like that, on the mechanics of assigning an assignment. So once you save that out and publish it, that'll be made available. Again, I won't do this because it's a live module. So I think that's nearly about it, unless I have any specific questions. But as I say, don't worry. We have a lot of other specific training coming